for them, and then the college student came. So the city school students presented and the college students presented. And I think that that elevates the way I see the students in this room, and I hope that you guys can meet my expectation, because that's where my expectation is now. Those are the kids I've met. The other kids that I've met in here, if you were on the Rain Garden project, could you raise your hand? And look around the room, guys, if you're not raising your hand. Now, if you were on the Hard Act project, raise your hand. Okay, I'm one person coming in. These people who are sitting next to you are experts and people who have worked on this and learned from this already. So as you are working through these projects and trying to understand what a watershed is and what the issues are that watersheds are facing, you have experts in your room, in your community, who are already have done this work. And so they are resources to you. I paused this movie on purpose. Does anyone know what this is or where this is? Lake Carmi. Yep. How long did it look like this year? Miss Gates.
July, August, and part of September.
Yep, it did. How did it smell?
Obnoxious.
Obnoxious, yeah. So I paused it here to show that, and then I like to bring this with me. I know there were several kids that came down to Montpelier this session, and you guys saw a bunch of pictures like this all around the well of the State House. These are my 3 kids, Liam, Andrew, and Teddy. They go to city school. I live in St. Albans City. I got a call from somebody that up in Highgate, the Rock River smelled putrid and looked terrible, and her cell phone pictures weren't high enough resolution, so I needed to go see it. Had my kids with me, so off we went, and this is what we found. That's a river. So what does a river do?
It brings water.
It moves. What does a lake do? It's pond. So you can expect, and this is something I'll talk about in my presentation, but you can sometimes expect that a lake or a pond, if there's no wind, if the water's shallow and really warm for a few days, you're going to see some of that algae growth. But for the Rock River to look like this, clear across, that's bad. It's bad news. So that's why I'm here today. Part of the reason, I think, is that a lot of students all around the watershed, not just in St. Albans City, not just even your grade level. This extends throughout the watershed, throughout many different ages. We recognize we have an issue here. So, do you guys know what watershed you live in?
Champlain.
Lake Champlain. Yep. More specific, anybody?
Like Champlain Valley.
We've flown to Lake Champlain, but what bay do you guys flow into? You guys know? St. Albans Bay. Take pride. How did St. Albans Bay look? Okay, so I told you guys that I work for MRBA, Missisquoi River Basin Association. If you look at my beautiful map, you see my beautiful map? I'm not fancy. I don't have like a pointer or anything, but this is city, and you're just on the outskirts, because Hardack starts the Hungerford Brook watershed, which is one of the watersheds that flows into the Missisquoi River. So what do you think? I'm a half-time person, and I cover all of that watershed. Think that's enough time? It's not enough time. I had grants due this morning, by the way, so yeah, it's not enough time. So up here is Lake Carmi. You see Lake Carmi all the way up there? And then this is Missisquoi Bay up here. There's something called phosphorus. Who's heard phosphorus before? Oh, that's great. Is phosphorus good, bad, indifferent? What do you guys think about phosphorus? It's a nutrient. Would anybody in this room be alive without phosphorus?
No.
Nope. So when I started this job, my background, I'm not a scientist. My background is in social work. I work with people. I work with communities, which is a good skill to have when you have this job. But I didn't understand about phosphorus. I didn't understand what the issues were. Because when I think of phosphorus, I think of something that we all need, that gives life, that we need to grow. So when does it become pollution? When does it turn into that? And I've got some, yeah, what do you think?
Isn't it when it goes into the lake?
Yeah?
Once the algae grows?
Right. So how much of it going into the lake? Large amounts. So the rain garden video says it really well. For plants, this is food. For our watershed, what is it? Pollution. Excess is the key word. When I talked to Sheldon, one of the kids had a great analogy. It's kind of like buying school lunches over the weekend and letting them sit in the cafeteria and throwing them away later. It's food that the plants don't need, and it runs off in excess. And what corn needs a lot of phosphorus to grow, it doesn't take that much phosphorus to grow blue-green algae, unfortunately. So Phosphorus is what we focus on around here because the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, please guys, if I say acronyms, if I say letters that you don't know what I mean, please raise your hand and stop me. I sometimes do it by accident and I don't mean to. So the EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency. They made something called a TMDL, which stands for Total Maximum Daily Load of Phosphorus. Basically, it's a pollution budget. This is how much pollution, how much phosphorus we as a watershed can put into Lake Champlain, and Lake Champlain can still meet its goal, can still be healthy. So different parts of the lake have a different acceptable amount of phosphorus. What do you think happens? Let me go back to my watershed map. What is there a lot of in this watershed overall? There's a lot of land, but what kind of land use is there, do you know? Guesses?
Hilly.
There's hills, but what do we use the land for? Farms. A lot of farms. There's a lot of forest land. There's a lot of stream bank. And there's some roads, but some people in here saw my video of me driving through the St. Albans city and then through going to Sheldon School. What was the difference?
Farm and like buildings.
It's amazing. Can you
They
say?
had a bunch of farms, but the surfaces going from the road to the farms and like the lakes, it was impervious.
So they were more pervious.
But they had a bunch, like here, there's no farms really that you can see from the roads in St. Albans City, but there it's like everywhere.
So it was interesting because a group of maybe 12 people watched it, and I asked that same question, and I had two very different answers. And I think that this is very illustrative of what a dividing issue this is. They watched that, and somebody goes, oh, look at all the farms. Somebody else said, oh, look at all the development. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the fight right there. That's the fight, is people saying, it's your fault, it's your fault. It's not my fault. I don't do anything to do it. And so there's a new message that came out this year in this legislative session. And I have it on my laptop. Actually, I have a sticker on my laptop. And it says all in. And Secretary of Agriculture, Chuck Ross, started saying this at a lot of his meetings. And the Rain Garden team said it at the end of their video. And what all in means to me is that everybody, no matter where you live in the watershed, if it rains at your house, you have a responsibility. Does it rain at your house? Rains at my house. I don't own a farm, but it rains at my house. If it rains at your apartment, if you drive on the roads, if you eat vegetables, drink milk, eat cheese, you're part of this. You have to be part of the solution. So that's my challenge to you. One of my challenges, maybe, to you. So this is the entire lake. Remember I said different parts of the lake have a different budget for pollution? This is the entire lake. The entire lake, they can attribute 35% to cropland, 22.3% to stream bank erosion, 14.5% to forested land, and then 13.8% to development. That's the lake overall. But if you just look at my part, my piece of the pie, it's different. This does not include St. Albans City and Town, okay guys? This is Missisquoi Bay. So my part where I showed you, those towns up high, we're looking at 64% cropland. So when people see this number, some people interpret that as saying it's all the farmer's fault. I interpret that as saying we need to work with farmers who own and manage much of the land in the watershed the most. There's a really different way to approach, two very different ways, I would say, to approach. Stream bank erosion is huge, and I can show you some tree plantings that MRBA, Missisquoi River Basin Association, that we do. And then only 6% is developed. Does anyone know where this is on the river? Everyone driven up there? It's about 45 minutes from here.
Richford?
Yeah, Richford, on 105. So Richford is built right on the river. So that's a good example of development, right on the river. So when it rains there, where does the rain go? The river. Does it get treated? Does it have a chance to slow down and get absorbed by the land? No. There it goes. Then stream bank erosion, I picked this picture. Do you see how high the river is? We didn't see that this year. We didn't get the ice jams. We didn't have the 2 feet of water over top. There are lots of roads that are open that usually are closed right now. We didn't see that this year, so it'll be interesting to see how much phosphorus we have. That is 105. No, that's 105 at the Berkshire-Enosburg line, just past the Dairy Center.
Isn't that 110%?
It is. You're right.
Is that supposed to be?
It's not supposed to be. My cropland number is higher than it should be. Sorry about that. I told you I had a grant due this morning. Oh gosh. Thank you. So phosphorus. Where does phosphorus come from?
Stuff.
What kind of stuff?
I
What? Living stuff. What about when it's not alive anymore?
It has like
decomposes in
like for farms, the corn takes up all the phosphorus that's in the ground, and once it comes fall and all the corn's cut down, the phosphorus has nowhere to go, and the rain ends up washing all that down into the lakes where it ends up meeting with like nitrogen and stuff like that, and it ends up creating the algae. And then like we actually made a presentation on this a while back. We were doing like different types of pollution in my group, like water pollution, and there was like zooplankton would eat the algae and they'd end up creating waste, and eventually it would like bigger fish would eat that, and then bigger, and they all end up creating waste, so it created a dead zone.
Yep. That's what's happening in Lake Carmi. It's what's happening in Missisquoi Bay, but Lake Carmi is like a little microcosm that we can really see what's happening. It's like a mini Lake Champlain that we can kind of see what's going to happen in the future. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do have Lake Carmi, which is teeny tiny, really, really small. And so there's something that they do at Lake Carmi a lot. They cut weeds with a weed harvester. Has anyone ever heard of that? Yeah? Yeah? So why do they do that? Do you guys know? Why would you cut the weeds? Have you been to Lake Carmi? Someone in the back.
Because they grow up a lot.
They get caught in boat propellers. It's not nice to swim to be able to use it. Why do the weeds grow?
Too much phosphorus.
Phosphorus.
Can't they also harm the like other plants that are there?
They're invasive species. The Eurasian milfoil is what I'm talking about, and what Sebastian was just bringing up is that it's an invasive species that can choke out native plants. So it's interesting because what they do with the weed harvester is really similar to mowing your lawn. It spreads the weeds out and it spreads the seeds out, so more weeds actually take root and grow up. So you guys know, what do plants have? Phosphorus. So when you cut the plants off and it goes back into the lake, what is that giving more up to the lake? And then what do the weeds need to grow? Phosphorus. So we go into this cycle, and that's what this picture is illustrating. Yes, there are other sources of phosphorus. There's a lot of phosphorus in our soil that's going in, which I don't know any farmer that wants to see their phosphorus run down the stream and off of their field. Phosphorus is gold. Phosphorus is something they need to grow their crops. We already talked about that. Okay, so what MRBA is doing, and I'm just one of many watershed organizations. Denise Smith came in and talked, right, to last year, about point and non-point source pollution. She is the executive director for the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. She's a city school board member, and she has kids at city school as well. Again, another local community resource that St. Albans City School has and can appreciate. Missisquoi River Basin Association is different from that group. We like to say we're their second cousin once removed or something like that. We work up in the watershed. Nobody sees us as much. We wear pants with holes in them and dig holes and get really dirty. That's kind of what we do. Maisie?
What is the MRBA stand for?
The Missisquoi River Basin Association. Yep, that's good. So do you see where these people are doing in this picture? Can you tell? Where are they planting trees though? What's that?
So the roots can kind of make the ground solid, and then the trees can absorb the phosphorus.
And they can hold it. They're going to hold the bank in place. So the picture next to it is Bugworks. At the presentation on Thursday night, Kurt Valenta, who is our one of our watershed educators who we work with to bring this program, talks about how when I go and talk about phosphorus to you guys, like everyone's eyes glaze over, you start to look at the back of the room saying, oh my God, how long is this lady going to talk about phosphorus? What Kurt does, which is really cool, is he takes kids out of the classroom, you capture bugs and learn about what those bugs mean for health of streams. That sometimes can resonate with people a lot longer than me saying, our goal is 22 parts per billion, and you kind of look at me like, huh? What are you talking about? So there are ways to get out in the watershed and understand what indicators there are for the stream health. And Bugworks is one of those. Another way, and this is something that we talked about a lot on Thursday night, is water monitoring. So the state of Vermont has a lab where we analyze data, but we analyze data from, we have 23 sites throughout the watershed. Think of my big map. So from Orleans County, where the river starts in Lowell, all the way to Monument Road in Swanton, we take lots and lots of samples. We sample for phosphorus, we sample for nitrogen, and we sample for turbidity. Has anyone ever heard the word turbidity or turbid before? Sebastian, no fair, you were there. Anyone else? Okay, no one else is, oh, someone? No? Okay, Sebastian.
Basically the
Clarity of the water. So when you have a high turbidity number, you're going to not be able to see very far in it. You're going to have a very cloudy sample. So what might that tell us? Why do we test for turbidity?
See how much sediment is in the water?
Right. If you have high phosphorus and high turbidity, likely your phosphorus is coming from stream bank erosion, right? If you have high turbidity, you're losing soil sides. If you have high phosphorus and high nitrogen, guess what has a lot of nitrogen in it? Human waste, cow waste, manure, right? So this can tell scientists different things about what the different sources might be for the pollution. So it helps people figure it out. I would not be able to do this without my volunteers. And then outreach, that's what I'm doing here today. Talking to you guys, educating you guys, learning about the watershed. So how can you help? And this is something that I'm going to challenge you guys to find a better list for, a bigger list for, and something that will make everybody, no matter how old they are, feel like they have a role to play and a difference that can be made in the watershed. When I first started this job, so Liam was probably 9 at the time, and I came home and he goes, "So did you do it?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "Did you clean the lake?" I said, "No, didn't. Not even close, not even a little bit. It's getting worse." There was a realization that this is something that's going to take generations and generations of all of us working together to actually see a change in the lake. And with that kind of change necessary, if we don't make it at this level where everybody understands how important we each are in the solution, we're never going to get there. So some of the things that you can do, you can support my organization or other watershed organizations, but watershed-wide, where should you wash your car? Car wash, if it collects the water to be reused. Think about your car wash choice. Think about where that water is going. If I was in my yard and I had a choice to wash my car in my driveway or on my lawn, which should I do?
the lawn.
Why?
Because
Then it gets out of the street.
Right, so what's the definition? Maisie was talking about this before. Pervious drains in. Impervious, it runs over top and it goes into our wastewater, our stormwater treatment. What do you do with pet waste?
Clean it up.
incinerate.
Garbage.
It needs to go in the garbage. So if you've been picking it up and throwing it in the ditch the whole time, it's not great for the water. And it's funny because, well, not funny, ironic, not funny, haha, that people think, well, that manure pit right there can run right into the lake. Who cares if I put my dog crap in the ditch? And that kind of attitude is what has gotten us down the road that we are where we are right now. This is why we're here, is because for so long people haven't taken that individual responsibility and said every little bit counts and every little bit makes a difference. If we don't continue to act like that, we're gonna be worse off than we are now. Septic systems, you guys, you don't have to think about that when you flush your toilet, do you? What happens at St. Albans City? In most of the town, where does our waste go? Sewage treatment plant. You guys should try to go there. I don't know if you've ever thought of doing that, teachers in this room. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you don't want to go there? Well, a lot of your taxpayer dollars go there, and a lot of your taxpayer dollars are going to, even more of them, are going to go there because the Environmental Protection Agency, remember I talked about them, the EPA, they only have regulation over point source pollutions, of which wastewater treatment is one. Farms are not. So if the EPA can only control point source, they're going to control point source. And one of the things that they are looking at doing is making St. Albans City upgrade that facility and upgrade it with investing millions of dollars, $17 million. And that would reduce the phosphorus, they think, by maybe 5%. Is that enough?
No.
But the EPA doesn't have control over other things, so what are they going to do? That's why there's legislation in the State House. Do you guys do policy stuff or talk about policy stuff?
We started a small amount, but Mr. Allen's trying to get
I'm going to start
to come in and talk about that specific bill that we went to the State House for.
Yeah. You absolutely, that would be great to do. Sorry, I have to get my other thing out. But while I'm going to get my thumb drive, this is what does this look like? Anybody? You guys go to Fairfield?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What does that look like?
It looks
Erosion. Looks like erosion to me too. What else? It's not sewer.
it's well, it's one of those things where it sends like the small little
There is a culvert in there. What does a culvert do?
well, it sends it. Well, if somebody feels a road over it, that way it will be able to continue on its natural path.
What's interesting about stormwater and this whole issue in general, what I found is nobody likes their land to be wet. No one. We want it dry, and we want it dry as fast as possible. And once we send it off of my land, it goes on someone else's land, and it's not my problem anymore. That is another reason we are in the boat that we are in right now. Yeah, boat, haha, I'm so funny. Look at this. I wish I was standing there. That was over my head when I stood in that line of erosion. This is actually pasture. So cows were allowed up to the fence. Cows don't like to go down things like that, so they didn't. But they were allowed to, and there were some areas on the bank where they felt safe and they would go down to the stream to drink. So that's what it looked like, and I want to just quickly show you the after pictures. So this is one of my success stories, I guess. So this is what it looks like after. Do you guys see what we did to the ditch? Doesn't that look nice? Ah, beautiful. And I had a group of 7 AmeriCorps work crew volunteers who seeded and mulched the entire area. Why is that important? Why does it need to be seeded?
So that the plants can be able to take them and filter the water.
Right, so look at, how am I helping if I just leave it more dirt to go down? No. So that's what it looks like now. There's a couple of things that I don't know if you guys might notice this. This is something that I wouldn't have noticed before I started this job. The fence has been moved. You see how far back it was? So we went to this farmer and said, hey, we're going to repair some of your pasture. Would you be willing to move your fence back 10 feet so that we can repair this part of the ditch? And he goes, oh, yeah. If the town calls me to tow out their plow truck one more time this winter, like the farmer was mad and looking forward to a fix on this particular corner and was more than willing to help us. He opened up his house for the crew to be able to use his bathroom, continued to help us throughout the entire project. We had neighbors on either side. The road crew in Fairfield did the entire job. I didn't have to hire an outside contractor. The road crew had the knowledge, expertise, and experience to be able to do this. So we actually had to take fill from elsewhere on the site to fill in this hole that was right there. But this is one project. Somebody once described non-point source pollution to me as the 10,000 little leaks all around the watershed. So if that's one fix, there's a lot more to go to fix it. 9,999, but we've actually fixed more than just one problem. So I was asking about policy work because I spent a lot of time in Montpelier this year. The last time I went to the State House was when I was in college. I had a social work class where we had to learn to meet our legislators, talk to our legislators, and track legislation. So I haven't been in college for quite some time. So for me, going back to the State House was a little uncomfortable. How would you guys who came to the State House describe how did it feel to be there? Were you nervous? Were you on your best behavior? It was long and boring. You had to sit and listen to everyone else talk, right? Is it painful? And you prepare and do all this stuff, and then you don't actually have to do anything, and you wonder, did I waste my entire day going to Montpelier? Because I feel that way when I drive home sometimes. But when your legislators, who are the ones that make the laws, who are going to make a difference, ask you to come, guess what? You have to go. You have to go. So this is a presentation that we gave to a group of legislators in the State House. I just talked to you guys about the 10,000 leaks, and they look like all different kinds of things. This is a stormwater issue from Rock 10 in Sheldon. This is a farm field. That's manure spread on top of snow. Is that allowed? No. Never. No matter if it snows on April 3rd or not, you're still not supposed to spread on snow. You're not supposed to spread on saturated ground. What's saturated? Extremely wet. If there's standing water, manure doesn't go on it. It's like, remember I said it's buying those lunches and leaving them in the cafeteria over the weekend? The manure is not going to be taken up by plants. What's going to happen to that manure? Wash off into the water. And then we have development paved surface here, and that's actually the Talcott Road picture up in the corner. So, who visits the water? Do you guys enjoy the water in Vermont? Yeah? What do you do? Who boats? Boats?
Oh, I vote.
Who swims? Who goes up to Montgomery to the awesome swimming holes? Yeah, it's awesome. We're so lucky to have it, right? Who canoes? Kayak?
I've done that a couple times.
Nice.
Yeah, well,
Fishing, hunting? Okay, awesome. So we all use the water. We all use the water in different ways. We're lucky to have that. So, this, I like this. I try not to put a lot of graphs. I apologize. But this graph, I think, speaks volumes. This is for a Lake Carmi site. Lake Carmi's goal, their TMDL, which is their pollution budget, is 22 parts per billion of phosphorus. Okay, look at the parts per billion of phosphorus. 22 would be right around this line here. So we're not there, right? But then when do we go way up? What is that? What do you think happened on June 26th last year?
Manure spread.
Nope. What happened? A lot of phosphorus. Septic tank? Nope. Something really big. I got really wet when I was sampling. Rain. A lot of rain.
I remember like crazy rainstorms.
So look at this, guys. Look at this over the sampling season. People estimate, the scientists at the state level estimate that most of the phosphorus enters our watershed between 6 and 15 rain events per year, period. Can you imagine? That's it. It's coming. Look at how much came in. And then, just to make sure that that wasn't that spot and I didn't spike and put like extra phosphorus in it just to get someone in trouble, here's another one. And now this spot is a different place at Lake Carmi. And I don't know if you noticed the axis, but this was around 40. This is about 50 right there. This one's around 200. And up there, we're almost hitting 700 parts per billion. Wastewater effluent, so the water coming from wastewater, is around 1,000 parts per billion, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about with dirty water, quote unquote.
Well, at least it went way.
It did go down. So what changed? What happens by the end of the summer? Our last sampling was 10:30.
It dried out. It completely dried.
So what does that mean, guys?
The phosphorus is gonna be like I don't think it's gonna be it's not gonna evaporate like the water does.
No,
The water's gonna
phosphorus
go up,
does not
and then
evaporate.
the phosphorus is just gonna go into the areas surrounding it.
So something that I'm learning a little bit about, and maybe something that you guys are going to learn about this year, is climate change and flood resiliency. Because if we talk about the polar vortex changing and we talk about our ice caps melting, the climate in Vermont is changing. And we are having more of these rain events. What was what hurricane? It wasn't a hurricane, it was a superstorm, right? Or what was Hurricane Katrina? Wasn't a hurricane by the time it got here, I don't think. Tropical storm. Sandy. Irene. So we're seeing more events. The weather's becoming more active. And so we're having to learn how to change our practices to deal with these kinds of events. Can you guys see the difference between these two streams? So the water is flowing from the top of the picture down. What's the difference between the top stream and the bottom stream?
Stream is cleaner and fresher, and the bottom stream is dirtier and
So this picture is an illustration of two different farmers who have two different field management practices. One of them manages one way and one of them manages the other way. And this is the result. Just in a picture, just snapped to show that for every person who's doing something great, there might be somebody else who's not doing something so great, or who has a problem that needs to be fixed on their farm that they haven't been able to afford to fix, or maybe they don't even know that it needs to be fixed. We talked about what this looks like. My picture of my kids, I love that. This is the St. Albans Bay picture. Beach closed to swimming. Have you guys seen that pen down there? That's what it looks like. One thing that the total maximum daily load study helped us realize, have you guys ever heard of the 80-20 rule or the 90-10? 10% of the people do 90% of the work. People usually complain about something like that. Well, the 80-20 rule is almost exactly true for the phosphorus problem. 80% of the phosphorus is coming from 20% of the land. So where should we focus our money and resources? On 20%. Seems like a better bang for your buck, doesn't it? So, what is this? Okay. This, again, I'm not a scientist. I apologize if I mess this up, but it's something called LiDAR mapping, which does a flyover map, and it knows what the slope, what slope? Nobody?
Wait, you asked what slope?
Slope, yes.
We all show
This slope?
It's like,
grader in this room to be able to answer that question.
It's how steep it is. And so it combines your slope with your soil type. Clay soils versus sandy soils. They might all be asleep from my presentation. Stand you up. So,
Wait. Can we pause for a minute?
Yes.
We are talking math right now. So
Maybe we
the
just
slope
don't
of a
like
line
math.
is the steepness of a line on a graph. She's talking about the slope of land. It's the steepness of the land.
so here, this is a class 3. It's an 8.7% slope. On a planted, that's a high slope for a planted field. So if you look at this field from high up, this entire field will show red, saying, oh, we need to look at that field. When you go to a subfield level, look how much of the field is red. A lot, not a lot? Not a lot. So what happens with these field maps, and actually I have a contractor out doing this today. I just got an email from her saying that she had great success. You go out to the farmer with a map and you say, hey, I'm really interested in talking to you about this field right here. It looks like you're losing a lot of nutrients from here. And the farmer will look at it and go, oh, my tractor gets stuck there all the time. Or my corn grows like this, stunted, disgusting, awful corn that we don't do anything. But the farmer might say, but that makes it easier for my tractor to turn around. Or I can't not plant corn there, so what are your alternatives? So my contractor works with them to figure out if maybe we could do a hay buffer. Maybe we could do something called strip crop, row crop. You guys know what row crop is? Row crop looks like is corn planted in rows. I have pictures of that too. Yeah, these, we're not going to go through those. Tillage. Okay. So my contractor goes to the farm and gives them different options. You have this red corner of your field, so I'm going to suggest that you till it alternatively. So what does tilling do?
kind of making the land.
Breaks up the land so you can plant it. There are some farmers that do no-till. Have you guys ever heard of no-till? Where they make slits in the ground and put seeds in.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. So if you have a tractor that goes through and does a slit in a seed versus a tractor that digs it all up, what's the difference?
There's less loose soil.
Less loose soil. Something else called cover crops. You guys ever heard of that?
Never. No, but I'm guessing. We don't teach a lot of stuff.
No, it's all right. Well, it's funny. It's so funny doing this in Sheldon versus here. It's just very, very different because we have farm families and just different experience. So I just want to see if anyone knows. So cover crops are what they sound like they are. You plant them different times during your field season so that instead of leaving your field like this after the corn comes off, it looks like this. Sometimes people can't tell that corn was planted there. In Franklin, the Lake Carmi was green, but the fields were green too. Buffers and strips. I love this picture. So look at this bank here. Any problems? Does that look good to you? It's pretty steep, but do you notice anything else?
There's things growing on it.
Not very many things.
Well, yeah, they're still growing.
So the river, and this is something I learned from one of the river scientists at the state. Rivers are going to take their floodplains whether we like it or not. Rivers move. And until they're stable, they move a lot. And if there's a big event, they really move a lot. And they will take roads, they will take houses, they will take bridges, they will take whatever is in their way of their floodplain.
The destructive force of nature.
It's true. It absolutely is. only to be compared with that of man. No. So this is an example of, do you see the corn here? And what's in between?
Grass.
And I see a tree. That's not this is an after picture, but this isn't good enough for me. Can you guys think of other things to make that after picture better? Many trees. Like, I want to not see the river from right there. I know, isn't that mean? Strip crop. Have you guys ever seen this? If you go to Franklin, you'll see this. The Dewing family's been doing that for a long, long time. Yeah?
That's my mother-in-law's baby.
Oh, really?
And I can tell you when that started. 1948, my husband's grandfather received a grant from the University of Vermont Agriculture Department
That's awesome.
and was paid like a lot of money
To try
and
it.
he still continued in the same field by his grandson who owns the farm.
And so what they do, it's so cool. I think they do it every 3 years. They swap those grass for corn. Do you see what I mean? So you see there's dirt, that's where the corn is, then there's grass, then dirt, then grass. The grass is harvested as hay, so it's still a crop, but it's not corn. Because what happens is with these row crops, you have a lot of exposed soil. And this is, you can't tell, it's really hilly. Can you kind of see in that picture? There's a lot of hills and valleys. And so the soil runs down, but it gets caught in the buffer strips, so it doesn't go into the water. Oh, and here's a grassed waterway, which really, it's the same idea. Tim Magnet in Franklin is the best spokesperson for this ever. And he's great because he says, I think the minimum is 25 feet, and he goes, 25 feet, that's not enough. I need a 50-foot buffer so I can harvest it. So he makes it work with his business plan and makes sure that he can move his corn elsewhere so he has hay to, he moves things around to make it work for him. But you see the water there? That's not grass. So what's that water doing? Not just sitting. It's moving. We talked about manure. What does manure have in it?
Nitrogen.
So, manure injection, what is it? What do you think? Into the ground. The picture on the left is broadcast, spread on top. The picture on the right is after. I'm going to use Tim again as an example because usually he lets me do that. He was 100% manure injection on his corn land this year. He says he does it because he's so close to the village that people complain when he spreads. So what makes it smell? What in the manure makes it stink? The nitrogen. If you smell it, you're losing nitrogen. So does he want to lose nitrogen or does he want to keep it in the ground? So his neighbors complain less. He has more nitrogen that goes into the ground. He has to buy less nitrogen to top dress his field to make sure he gets what he needs. And the farm's doing well with those practices. So, okay, and then these are stormwater projects. But before I talk about this, I came at this from an unfair advantage where I grew up in Elburg and had more of a farm background. You guys don't. My kids don't. So what questions do you have about farm management? Do you hear all the things I just talked about practices? If you're managing and cropping thousands of acres of land, how do you keep on top of all of this? How do you make sure that you know what programs UVM Extension, which still operates today, will let you try and see if it works on your field? What do you think? Any farm experience, questions? Anyone been to a farm?
Me,
What kind of farm? Dairy, beef, dairy, grandparents, chickens, pigs. How many animals make waste? All of them. How many people make waste? All of them. Okay, so before we get back to stormwater, anything else on farms? So we talked about how much of the farm impact there is in the watershed. St. Albans Bay, I haven't been talking about that. There are large farms in the bay as well, and they're being looked at, especially the Jewett Brook watershed is being looked at with crosshairs on it right now. There's been a lot of pressure to reduce the amount of phosphorus loading across the board, and a lot of people are paying attention this year. This is a step pool drainage system. Step pool. Start up here, collect the water. It goes down a step, it sits here to collect. It goes down again, sits here to collect, instead of just rushing and taking everything with it. That's what it looks like. This, you guys been to Swanton? Ever? Maybe? Do you guys see this big pain in the butt traffic thing that's there now? Did you ever wonder why? It's something called green infrastructure, but it's not green, which is weird. Actually, the people at the state were really disappointed. They dug down and found a beautiful sand, so they didn't have to plant it at all. It was actually such a good drain, well-drained area. They just put the rocks in it instead. So all of this water was going right into the river, and now instead, it collects and sits here in that island. So a lot of times people wouldn't look at that and realize that's a stormwater, a green infrastructure, or something that's going to reduce runoff overall into the lake. What about this? We don't even have a name for this. We just make this up because some people say it's a rain garden. It's not a rain garden. It's more of an infiltration ditch or a step. It looks it looks too pretty to be a ditch, so I think people sometimes don't agree with me. But what was happening, this is a camp road at Lake Carmi. Has anyone camped at Carmi or been there? What are the roads like around the lake?
Not so good.
Not so good. You have to go pretty slow, huh? They're all dirt roads. And dirt roads are another source of erosion and phosphorus. So what was happening here is, this is on Patton Shore Road, I think. Yes, Patton Shore. The water was running, and it was flooding out 3 camps underneath it. So all we did, it was a pretty easy fix. We built this ditch to catch the water and let it set, and we planted and mulched it, and it happens to look like a nice landscaping feature, but it also is a stormwater fix as well. So sometimes you have to figure out what works in a certain area with a certain problem. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You guys been to Collins Pearly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you guys should go see this. Maybe in a couple weeks when the grass is green. Have you seen this?
Oh yeah.
This is another really cool site that you could see about,
Giant dirt mound.
yeah, daylighting a stream. So what started as a ditch dug straight, because remember we want our land dry and we want it dry fast. So a straight line does it, right? Well, do streams go straight?
No, they curve.
So do you see this is what it looked like before? See the culvert here and right through? Now what does it look like?
Amazing.
Oh, it's so pretty and moves and it's happy. It's a happy stream. So shoreline. Anyone camp, have a shore? Yeah, so what happened after the flooding 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Three years ago. Do you see this on the, I'm looking at the opposite, the left side. Look at what happened. What happened there?
Like everything got washed away.
Where did it all go? It got washed away. Where did it go? Okay, I didn't do this project, but my guess is, just like I talked about management of farmland, we have a responsibility to manage our shoreland a certain way. A lot of times people have their shore properties and they want it to look just like their city property. They mow their lawn, they plant the kind of trees they like, or the bushes that they like, and they cut down all of the trees so they can see the lake beautifully. Well, it does a few things to the lake. You guys like to fish, somebody said? Yeah, okay. So trees at the shore cool the water temperature and provide really good fish habitat. The higher the temperature, higher the likelihood of what did I say before? If you have high temps? Algae, right. So you can see your lake, but there are some other things that happen, and one of the things that happens, your shore is at risk because those trees have roots that hold your bank in place, especially for high flow events. So when these people came to ask us for help, we said, sure, we'll help you, but guess what we want to do at your property? What did we ask to do? We have I think that's 15 feet, maybe 20 feet of that they could not mow. It will be mulched and planted and not maintained by the landowner. Other than you can trim the bushes. If they're dogwoods, you can keep them. You can actually almost cut them all the way down every fall and they'll come back up and have a really good root system. A lot of landowners don't like that. Why do you think? It's ugly. That's a good one.
It's kind of easier than, standing out. Well, I mean, you still have to do it, but instead of mowing the whole area.
Well, sometimes I tell people that they don't have to mow their lawn as much, and they still don't like it. Why not?
Property value increases with the lake view. It doesn't matter if you see it from your top bedroom window in the attic or you can see the lake, you'll pay more for that house than you would if you can't see the lake or if you can't see mountain ranges. Lake view, you pay more for your property.
Yep, increases the value. However, seawalls, oh, I'm sorry, Laura.
I just had a question about the fish population.
Yeah.
You said it, higher temperature in the water causes more algae. Is
Right,
it
higher
lowers the
temperature
oxygen?
lowers the oxygen. Yep, less fish.
Okay.
Yep. And brook trout can't survive in water temperatures over a certain degree. In the upper Missisquoi, we see a lot of brook trout running. Brook trout, remember I talked about bugs as indicators for stream health? Brook trout are a fish indicator, but they're not this side of the watershed. They're more in the upper watershed. So when I give this presentation, a lot of times people say, well, what do you do with your stormwater? And so I think that that's a fair question, and I would challenge each of you to think about that. And not answer me right now, but think about what do you do, what does your family do with stormwater? It rains at your house, we agreed. Everyone said, it rains at my house. So what do you do? And think about the other thing. You flush the toilet, you drive on the roads, you eat dairy, vegetables, some other things that a farmer grew somewhere. So how are you part of the solution? This is the price tag we gave the legislature. It's a lot of money. You think we're going to see that?
No.
The state does have money coming into H35, and I don't want to get too much into that, but a big reason, and I know you guys sat through 2 hours. How was it, 2 hours? It was 2 hours. 4 hours? How long were you guys there? Two. I think it was 2 hours. I felt like 3. But one of the reasons it was so important that you were there, and it was so important that we were there, was so that we could tell them how important this is and that they do need to pay for it. This is a really tough funding year. You know the biggest issues in front of the legislature are education and water quality right now? It's a double impact for you guys sitting in this room right now. And it's not going to be cheap. Okay. Oh, questions from legislators. Okay, you guys going to be legislators? No? Nobody?
What do you do with stormwater?
I know a legislator.
Do you want me to ask? I can really answer that. So at our house, we have a wet area that we don't mow, that we mulch and planted. We have a rain barrel. Does anyone else have a rain barrel?
We don't use it though.
Ah, you should use it.
Every year. Have 2 of them.
Good, that's awesome. Rain barrel purchasing programs would be awesome. Like things I would love to see from the city. There are things called water bars. You guys I run, do you see all the driveways that all the gravel washes into the road?
Yeah.
Okay, there's something called a water bar that's an open top culvert that costs less than $200 to install, and they will not have to get a load of gravel next year for their driveway. Seems to me a pretty common sense install when you look at the cost benefit analysis. Rain barrels would be great.
Yeah.
Just rerouting water that's flowing from your gutters, right? Any other stormwater things that you guys think about? Rosie?
What is a rain barrel?
What's a rain barrel?
Big barrel that has water. Yeah, rainbow is just like something that collects the water that you can usually like.
Yep, so what we do for ours, we have a gutter that comes off of our house.
Yes.
It goes into, it's actually a recycled olive, it used to be an olive container. It's a giant, big green thing. And there's a hose attached to it that we use that to water, we don't water our lawn, so water plants elsewhere in the lawn. Or if there's an overflow, it's diverted to an area that's already wet and planted so it can infiltrate at that area. Otherwise, that water would all go into our driveway and then go into the wastewater, stormwater system. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Having a rain garden?
Yeah, does anyone have a rain garden?
Not that much, but it's a tiny one.
Tiny one? Hey.
I don't think people would actually know.
Well, you might have one.
Unless they're asked to, they probably don't even know.
What it is? Well, do you remember the picture that I showed you of the pretty ditch? So mulch, do you have any areas that look like this at your house that are mulched?
Yes.
That's a good stormwater practice. That's good. So when mom and dad are complaining about buying another bag of mulch, be like, it's so good, it's good for the lake. Other questions?
I do. Alicia, can you just leave that on for a minute?
Yeah, leave it on.
Leave that picture up.
Oh, why?
Maybe when I get up.
It's probably some, it's probably like her husband or something.
That's what I think I do. That's exactly how my husband stays. No, seriously.
Oh, really?
Well, because he works because of the.
She knows everybody. That's what happens in Franklin. You have to be careful because
Yeah.
when you go in, you know it.
No, but that's Greg's cousin.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So anything else that I feel like I've been up here giving you guys a lot of information, and I started basic but got into a lot of details. Oh yes, I'm sorry.
So, where I live, my backyard stays constantly wet until about July,
Yep.
which I'm one of those people, I just want my
Lawn wet.
dry so I can actually mow it, and the kids can actually have all that land to play on.
Yep.
What could I do to possibly help dry that quicker? Plus, we have a part, because I live in a cul-de-sac, and it's all downhill.
So it collects.
So it all keeps coming downhill, and I'm like the third to last one, so by my lawn, the backyard is completely soaked for an extended period of time, which I have a nice straight line going down the back side where water just flows down.
Yep. So I do a lot of shoreline assessments. So if I think of it the way that I would walk and approach a shoreline assessment, I would look upstream first for what my options are to slow the water down. So any chances that you can meander the water, put rocks in a ditch to slow it down, build something called a check dam, which is really a pile of rocks to slow the water down, to give it a chance to infiltrate. So deal with the problem before it becomes a problem a little bit.
Corner, is where my property ends from the previous, because they have the same thing coming and it just goes right to mine.
Right through.
But we do, it's a little,
There's a swale. Is there like a swale?
yeah.
Is it it's cement there, or is it?
No, it's just grass and dirt.
So what would be awesome is actually a collection or a rain garden type area there where the water could sit and be like a stormwater pond, but you can landscape it to look.
So I have, which before I bought the house, I've only been there 3 years, it has a rocks and a garden in the back.
Yeah?
Like kind of in the middle of it, but it doesn't do any good collecting the water, obviously. because
Right.
it
So
just goes-
that's in the middle, that's not in the area where the water is running?
Yeah, it's literally right at the corner of my lawn. Like in the back corner, like it comes down from the neighbors, and that's there.
Huh.
But then right after it, just a nice stream.
Just keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole point of the best thing you can do for water quality is not always the best thing you can do for landowner use of the property. So you strike a balance. You go to somebody's camp shore and you say, where do you put your picnic table? Where do you store your boat lift? Where do you do this? Because I want to know how you use your lawn. So you look at your lawn and you say, this is the area the kids play soccer. This is the area that I want to mow. This is not what I'm willing to give up. You know, line those areas up.
I'm willing to do anything with it, because it's way in the back and it's literally 10 feet of the back of my lawn that I got plenty of lawn for the kids to play on. They don't need to go back
The
that.
best thing to do would be to have it receive the water. So no more grass, dig it up, have the mulched area there. If it's really sandy, you could get away with rocks on top of it, but if it's not, if it's clay, you're gonna want mulch on top of it. Planting trees is probably the best thing you're gonna do because of the amount of water that trees take up.
Okay.
Sorry, is that not what you wanted me to?
There is a little tree back there that they planted before I got there.
Yeah, it really helps. And what will happen, it's really cool if you can let that grow up. On the shoreline, something we talk about are the 5 layers of canopy. So you've got your big old growth, but guess what? Your old growth's gonna fall down. So you need your new growth coming up. But it's important all the way down to the duff layer of mulch and pine needles and leaves that we think are a pain in the butt when we think about landscaping. But that's an important part of the ecosystem to deal with a watershed. So there's a lot of natural solutions to it. Or you can make it look a little more manicured with things like that. One thing I would suggest is using native vegetation, something that's going to do a really good job and stay there for a long time and fit in with the.
Used to this weather.
Exactly.
So there we go. You guys can dig in the back lawn.
Sound like fun?
You could probably collect up the water.
Water actually comes up into my lawn. The lawn, if you mow your lawn,
Like, you think like the clippings from when you mow? You mean? Right. Well, I don't know. I think the grass is probably better instead of in a pile by there. I had a really good question up here. Can I get everyone's attention for a second? I know I've been talking for a long time, but I had a question about what do you do with your lawn clippings? Like some people, when they mow, they don't just let their clippings go and mulch in with their yard. They collect it in a bag. What do you do with those lawn clippings? What's in the lawn clippings?
Stuff.
What's in it? Phosphorus. That's my keyword. So where do we not want to put the extra phosphorus, extra nutrients?
In the water.
So it is better if you are cutting, it's better to have it mulched in with your yard. If you cannot do that, put it in an area that can settle out and has a chance for the water to settle out and to sit for a bit. Don't go put it in the ditch. It's the same thing I think people do with pet waste is they automatically think, oh, this is the easiest way to get rid of something. I'm going to put it in a ditch. It's like that's the way our brains work. And I think that's the way the original waste transport system was, is that once it was in a ditch running down, then it wasn't our concern anymore. And so we do the same thing with a lot of management. Yeah.
In my backyard, we've got this little hill, and up on the top of the hill, we've got this huge pile of like sticks and lawn clippings.
Mm-hmm.
So we just, once the bag is full from our lawnmower, we just dump it up there. That's where we've always dumped all of it.
Where you've kept it.
Yeah.
You have a compost pile, and that's. Does anyone else compost? Nice. Well, maybe that's something, a relationship between compost and water quality. What is that doing for water quality? What?
I said you can use it for like compost.
It is, because it's nutrient. You can use it for your garden. Absolutely. Is that good? Anybody else? Or are we?
Anybody have any clarifying questions or final questions that you'd want to ask? So this is a great intro into what you're going to be learning. A lot of what Alicia talked about today are things that you're going to be using and researching in this next unit. So I'm sure if we have more questions, we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. And like I said, I live up on High Street. My kids go to school here. I take a lot of pride in the fact that you guys are learning about this and making this a priority for the school. It makes me really glad that my kids are here. And you know, when Liam's about to go to 7th grade, maybe this is the direction we'll try to send him. But I'm really impressed with the work that you guys have done. So, 5th grade, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like Voyagers last year.